These are the reading and phonics lessons for Thursday, May 14th. These are the materials that you'll need for today's lessons. Make sure that you have your workbook page 82, workbook page 83, and crayons and a pencil. We're going to start by listening to a story about our favorite monkey, Curious George. So go ahead, make sure that you have all your materials ready to go, press play, and then the next slide you're going to listen to You Can Do It, Curious George, and then I'll meet you back after the story's over and we'll go ahead and talk about it.
Margaret and H.A. Ray's You Can Do It, Curious George. You can do it, Curious George. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. George loved going to the museum with his friend. While they were visiting the museum, they saw a sign. The sign said that the museum had won a prize. People voted this museum as their favorite. They said this museum was the best. When George saw the sign, he started to think, what could he do best? He decided to find out. You can do it, George, said the man with the yellow hat. George went back home. He was good at drawing dinosaurs. Maybe he could draw the best dinosaur picture ever. George decided that he liked to draw, but he wanted to try to do something different. He climbed out the window to look for ideas. Soon, George came to a restaurant. That gave him a great idea. George loved spaghetti. He decided he would make the best spaghetti ever. You can do it, George. Look at all that spaghetti. George thought it tasted great. He tasted more and more of it and made a big mess. Then the chef came in. Get out, he shouted. Out of my kitchen. George was going to have to find something else he did best. George needed another idea. He got on a bus to think. The bus took him to the ski slope. That gave George an idea. He grabbed the biggest sled he could find. Maybe he could sled down the hill faster than anyone ever had before. You can do it, George. At first, sledding was fun. Then George started going too fast. Look out, George! George was going to have to find something else he did best. George needed another idea. Then he remembered something he did better than anyone. He rushed back home. When he got there, he took out his kite. He was going to be the best kite flyer ever. George got his kite to go higher and higher. You can do it, George! Then the kite lifted George right off the ground. Look out below! George landed in a tree in the forest. His kite flew away without him. George was going to have to find something else he did best. Just then George spotted smoke. Oh no! It was a forest fire! George wanted to warn everybody about the fire. He raced to town and found the fire station. The firefighters quickly put out the fire. Whew! By now the sun was setting. It was too late for George to figure out what he did best. George's friend met him back at the museum. The director had heard that George warned everyone about the forest fire. She thought that was the best thing anyone had done in a long time. George did it. Hooray! He found out what he can do best. He is the best helper. George got a very special prize that day.
All right, here we are back together again. I hope you like the story You Can Do It, Curious George. I always like his stories. They always make me smile. in this story, Curious George, I think we can all kind of relate to this story. At least I can, because when I think about it, I think about this story and Curious George. They went to the museum in the morning and he found out that the museum had won a prize for being the best museum, right? So he decided that he wanted to find out what he did best, right? And so he spent that whole day, right? He went home and he tried drawing because he's such an awesome um, artist. He can draw the best dinosaurs, right? So he's, no, that wasn't good enough. And so he went out and tried to do something else. And so he tried, oh, that's right, he tried spaghetti. And then, oh, God, did he make a mess with the spaghetti? Oh, how funny it was spaghetti. No, that didn't work out. And so he kept thinking, and what could he do? Nope. So he had an idea, and then he thought maybe he could become the the person who is the fastest downhill sledder. And then he realized that maybe that was a little too fast for him, right? And so then he went back home and grabbed his kite because he was always so good at flying kites. And Curious George loves flying kites, right? So in his kite flying adventure, which he's usually good at, but just like Curious George, it ended him up in a tree, right? So stuck up there while he's thinking about what he's so good at, he sees a forest fire. And he runs into town and tells them about it so that they can go and put out the fire before anybody gets hurt, right? Before it damages anything, before any houses get damaged, before any more trees get damaged. So there's Curious George at home trying all day long to do something so great, right? And think of something that he's the best at. And here it turns out is that he's the best at being a helper, right? And it's funny because sometimes when you think about it, you try and you try and you try and you try to do something, and actually you don't really have to try so hard to just be the best you sometimes, you know? Think about that. All right, let's go on. I'm going to keep moving on to the next slide. You don't necessarily need your workbook page 83 yet. We're just going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the story structure yet. Remember when we were in class, we had talked about there's different parts of a story. We have the characters, we have the setting, and then there's either a problem and a solution, or there's the beginning, the middle, the end. Well, this one, what they're asking is they want to talk about the story structure. So first what they're giving us, well, let me get back over there again. First what they're giving us right here is they're already giving us the characters in the story. And the characters in the story are George, and yes, of course, the man with the yellow hat was there in the beginning, but pretty much it was George. He was the main character in the story, right? So that's why they have George already written there for us. In the box next to that, or beside that, it says settings. And remember, settings is where the story takes place. And the story didn't happen all in one place, right? That's why they have a couple different words here. The first one says museum, because that's where the story started. And then, well, yes, he was at home also, but then it was the restaurant, also the forest, because remember, that's where he saw the fire, right? So that was the setting, or I should say settings, because there is an S there, which means more than one, settings. All right, so now they want to know the sequence. They want to know the beginning, the middle, and the end. What happened in our story? You can do it, Curious George. However, they've given us the beginning and the middle. So let's read that, okay? All right, let's think about the beginning. Let's right here. beginning. And at the beginning of the story, what happened? Well, remember first, you can remember how when we talk about our stories and we put things in order in our stories, it's first, next, and then last. All right, so first, it says George decides to find out what he does best. All right, so remember that's what happened in the beginning of our story. So let's find out what happened in the middle. The middle, it says next. Oh, there's our key word, next. Remember we had first, that's in the beginning, then in the middle, next. All right, next. George tries cooking, sledding, and flying a kite. So in the middle of the story, or actually in the beginning of the story, George decided to find out what he does best. Then through the middle of the story, which is the main part of our story, those are all the things that he had tried to do. Remember, he tried cooking. Actually, that was the second thing, because the first thing he tried to draw, and then he tried cooking, and then that didn't work, and so his next thing was sledding. That didn't work. So then he went to flying a kite, which led him to the tree, right? And then that is where the magic happened, right? So they have the beginning, the middle. They didn't tell us about how the story ended. They left that blank. That's why it says end, and the end is blank for us. So let's figure out how we're going to do the end. Now, I'll meet you on the next page, so wait for me for just a second. This is the part where you will need your workbook, page 83, and we have been talking about the structure of the story. You can do it Curious George. And what you guys are going to do here is, it is your assignment to add the end. All right, remember, the beginning is here, it's right there. The middle is right here. The beginning says first, Curious George decides to find out what he does best. The middle says next, George tries cooking, sledding, and flying a kite. So the ending should be, what word do we need to write here to finish it? We have first, then next. What should our last word be here? That's right. All right, so I want you to write the word last right here. Give me a second and I will have it there for you. Okay, there it is. I've got my word last. You may copy that word last. All right, so we have first, George decides to find out what he does best. Next, he tries cooking, sledding, and flying a kite. Last. Your assignment is to write the word last and then draw a picture of what happened last in the story. How did it end? What happened? What happened at the end of that story? How did it end after Curious George was flying a kite? He got stuck in the tree, saw the fire, warned everybody about the fire, and won a medal for being the best helper, right? All right, so that would be the ending of the story, all right? Not when he was flying a kite is when he was in the tree, because that's how he got stuck in the tree. But the ending of the story was that he was able to tell the firefighters and warn people so that they were able to safely put out the fire And then the final ending was that George won an award for being the best helper. So your job is to go ahead in this area right here. The only word that you have to write is last, and then you can draw a picture to show me what happened at the end of the story. All right. I'm going to pick up your work from last week. I had a couple delays, but I should be getting it tomorrow. So I'll be getting all your work tomorrow, and I can't wait to see all those pictures from last week. And I'll be talking to you guys soon. Have a great afternoon, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys. We're going to finish up our lesson today with workbook page 82, and here we are going to identify words that have the letters V and Z in them. So for each of these pictures, we're going to look at the picture, say the name of each picture, and then choose the word underneath that names that picture. All right, so let's go ahead. My arrow up top, making sure that you have your name up here, please and thank you. And then let's go ahead and look at number 1. That is a van. So find and circle the word van. Right, number 2, look at what he's doing to his jacket. He's pulling up on the front part where you close it. Zip, zip. Find the word zip. All right, number 3. And number 3, what kind of line are they drawing? Remember, we've been talking about that in science, huh? That is a zigzag. Find the word zig. Which of those words tells about that line? Zig. All right, and our last one on this page, that is a doctor that takes care of animals. You know, we call those a vet. Remember, we say that it's short for veterinarian. So we call that a vet. Find and circle the word vet. All right, now go ahead back and practice each of the words that name the picture. Practice saying them. And once you're done with that, that's all for today, guys. Make sure that you finish with your social studies and your math as well. And I shall see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Bye.